I'm being asked frequently, how do we train our sales team in conditions like we're experiencing right now? Those conditions being a pandemic, but that wasn't enough, so we had to have record unemployment. That wasn't enough, so now we've got 35 or 40 cities protesting and rioting every single day. So, my answer is fairly standard. First of all, we control what we can control. We can't control the pandemic. We can control our own health, of course. We can't control unemployment. We can control our own employment. And there's nothing we can do about the protests and riots that are taking place around the country. However, there are some things we can do to better prepare our sales team to handle customers today. I find that most salespeople, first of all, meet and greet a customer like I was taught to meet and greet a customer 40 years ago. It's ridiculously unimpressive. My suggestion, first of all, would be A, to modernize the meet and greet, and B, make sure your customer knows how to meet and greet a customer on the telephone, via text, in an email, by video, online, because lots of meet and greets are going to be virtual these days. And the meet and greet is still a critical element of creating a delivery. Let's face it, people still buying from people. Yeah, I know more people than ever are trying to buy them online without the dealership involved. However, that's still only about 25 or 30% based on the numbers we're seeing today. So there's a way to modernize the meet and greet, believe me, and most salespeople have never been taught it. Number two, you need to modernize the discovery process. You know, it used to be when a customer came in, we'd sit them down, ask them a bunch of questions, and to help them pick out the right car. Well, the problem is they're picking out the right car before they ever get to your store, if they ever do get to your store. However, there are ways to ask good questions that will help the customer make a better decision. Because if a customer does all the work themselves and they end up picking out a car that they cannot afford, guess what? They're going to go somewhere else and buy a car. They're not going to buy it from you because you did not help them. So, modernize the meet and greet. It needs it, believe me. Modernize the discovery process. It's much different than it was even 5 years ago. Most sales team members don't know what the word transparency means, much less how to communicate it to the customer. It's been a buzzword for 6 or 7 or 8 years now. However, it's more important than ever now that a sales team understand what transparency is and understands how to communicate it. And when it comes to communication, and this is a big one right here, most salespeople are taught to make presentations. All right, a presentation is a one-way talk. Salespeople should learn a far more effective way to communicate, and that's called, this will be news to some of you, a conversation. When a salesperson learns to converse as opposed to present, he or she they become a much, much better communicator. And if you're going to communicate the new dealer pricing model, transparency, a new discovery process, a better meet and greet, it's got to be conversational. It cannot be in presentation form. But most people teach salespeople to make presentations like they did 40 years ago. It boggles my mind. In order for a salesperson to get a customer to write up, they have to do an awful lot right. They have to get the customer to like them just a little bit. They have to make sure the customer is comfortable at the dealership. And they have to come pretty close to picking out the right vehicle, okay? It takes all that to get them to write up, and then salespeople are taught the most arcane and Neanderthal ways of presenting the numbers. Most salespeople present the numbers in a manner that literally creates objections as opposed to eliminates or suppress objections. There is a much, much better way to present the proposal than most sales people understand. And obviously the managers don't understand it either, or they'd be teaching them a better way to do it. So they need to learn to present the proposal more effectively. Now, when it comes to asking the customer to buy, it's still mind-boggling to me what I see out there. Most salespeople march out, put the numbers down, do a horrible job of presenting the numbers, and then shut up. Now, the shut up part's right, but they left out a part, and that's asking the customer to buy. It's called the close. Look, it's wonderful to be enthusiastic about your product, and it's wonderful to be a nice human being, and it's wonderful to know your product backwards and forwards and be able to do a good feature-benefit presentation. But if there is no close, there is no value exchange. Most salespeople are terrible at closing, and it's because they're taught terribly. A salesperson not only needs to know how to close, they need to know multiple closes, because very seldom will the customer close on the first attempt. What that means is they have to know how to, well, first of all, they need to know the difference between negotiation and justification. You know, most of us that have been in the business for any length of time grew up negotiating with customers. And it was easy in retrospect, because on new cars we had much larger margins. On used cars we could advertise high prices. So we could start high, customers start slow, we end up somewhere in the middle, and the customer's got a nice discount, and we've got a nice gross profit, and we live happily ever after. Well, that's not the case anymore. Most of you are advertising new and used car prices that are void of much gross on the internet. You have to do it from a competitive standpoint. It's part of the transparency thing that most salespeople don't know how to communicate. So negotiating, while you may have to resort to it once in a blue moon, if you're resorting to it on every single deal, your salespeople are missing out on making any money, which means they ain't going to stick around. Your sales department is missing out on gross profit, much needed gross profit to keep the dealership afloat and profitable. So the first thing sales teams need to understand is negotiation is gone, justification is here. The most successful salespeople are going to be those that can justify the numbers, not negotiate the numbers. Anybody can negotiate a price or a trade-in or a payment. Only very skilled people can justify price, payment, trade-in, and even cash. And by the way, speaking of that, I mean, look, the objections are predictable. If you get me to write up, I'm not going to object to you. I'm not going to object to your store. I'm probably not going to object to the car if you help me pick out the right one. So what's that leave? I could object to the price, which I probably will, because we've taught customers to do that. I can object to the payment, because most of the time when I do, a salesman gets up and brings me back a lower one. I can object to the trade. I can object to the cash down. So those are the only 4 objections. If a salesperson doesn't know 3, 4, or 5 price justifications, 2 or 3 good, solid payment justifications, the trade justification is the easiest one to handle, because you can use the internet to take care of that objection. And cash is just a matter of educating the customer on what cash does for them. If they can't handle those predictable objections by justifying the price multiple ways, justifying the payment, justifying the trade-in, justifying the amount of cash, then they're just not prepared. And if you're not prepared, you are probably prepared to fail. And lastly, people need to remember that once you do justify the numbers after the objection, you need to reclose. You need to ask them to buy again. And if you don't know more but one close, you really can't change it up much. And finally, most salespeople don't understand the concept of developing a clientele. Most salespeople live in a 30-day world. And by the way, that's our fault. You know, hero to zero thing. What we did in May doesn't matter now because it's June. Well, that's stupid thinking. Everything that happened in May can lead to sales for the rest of that salesperson's career if they understand how to develop a clientele, not just sell a customer. All right, we teach a retail impact course that covers not just everything I've mentioned today, but a lot more. It's a modern sales skills course. It's designed to help people navigate the sales world in the year 2020 and hopefully beyond. I'm Steve Richards. I thank EasyCare and Motor Trend Certified for allowing me to make this video, and I certainly thank F&I Fuel for allowing me to post this video on their awesome site. All the best to each of you. Business is booming, I can tell you that. I'm in Danville, Virginia today. I was in North Carolina yesterday, and they're selling a lot of cars in Atlanta. I left a Subaru store Friday that broke every record they had, every record for sales since their inception. So business is out there. Hope you're getting your unfair share. Stay healthy. All the best.